Then came the real turning point. No more sleeping in hallways like a stray dog. Nas now had his own special cell. He shaved his head clean. Goodbye, innocent-looking Nas. Hello, prison gang starter pack. He wasn't the same guy who walked into this place. And there was no going back. The real question was he ready for who he was becoming? Meanwhile, the lawyers were still hustling. Outside, the legal battle was getting messy. Helen was cooking up her prosecution strategy, while Chandra and Stone were digging for clues to clear Nas's name. Stone started looking into the real elephant in the room, the ketamine. Nas had never touched drugs. So why was ketamine found at the scene? And more importantly, if you mix ketamine with cocaine, you get a wild cocktail, one that turns people into party maniacs before knocking them out cold. So where did Andrea get it? Stone was determined to find out. He even hired a forensic expert, the detective version of a mom checking price tags in a supermarket. Back in prison, a gift from Freddy. Nas had barely started adjusting when Freddy handed him his first assignment. The inmate who burned him with the DIY acid? Yeah, Freddy took care of that. The guy was now lying in the bathroom, barely conscious. Freddy grinned. What are you waiting for? Nas hesitated. Then, wham! He let loose, fist flying. It got so brutal that even Freddy's own guys had to pull him off. Damn, man, we said teach him a lesson, not kill him. You trying to get us all in trouble? Nas stepped back, chest heaving. This wasn't just about survival anymore. He was becoming someone else entirely. Detective Box smells something fishy. Meanwhile, Detective Box was having his own existential crisis. Unlike the lawyers, he wasn't interested in whether Nas walked free or got locked up for life. He was worried about something else. If Nas wasn't the killer, then who was? Which meant whoever actually did it was still out there. Box retraced Nas's steps that night, checked Andrea's place, reviewed surveillance footage, and the deeper he dug, the less things added up. Stone wasn't wasting time either. He tracked down a known drug dealer suspected of selling ketamine to Andrea. At first, the guy played dumb, but after a little persuasion, read borderline illegal intimidation, he cracked. Andrea had bought ketamine that night. Boom, new lead unlocked. Stone even hired a forensic expert to comb through the crime scene again. The guy was meticulous, like a mom hunting for Black Friday deals. If there was anything that didn't add up, they'd find it. New inmate. New problems. Back in prison, a new guy arrived. Petey. Petey looked like he had walked into the wrong building and was about to ask where the customer service desk was. Freddy? He didn't do pity. All right, Nas, Freddy said, slapping his shoulder. Time to pay me back. Nas gulped. For what? Freddy smirked. Petey's mom is visiting soon. She'll be bringing a little something special in her underwear. Nas frowned. What kind of? Cocaine. Nas paled. Okay, and what am I supposed to do with it? You swallow it. Nas blinked. What? Freddy tossed him a grape. Start with this. No chewing. Nas looked at the grape. Looked at Freddy. This was his life now. And it was only going to get weirder. The art of smuggling an existential crisis on a toilet seat. The big day had arrived. Petey was meeting his mom. And Nas? Well, he got an unexpected visit from Stone and Chandra. Not even a second to breathe. And Stone was already going off. I'm disappointed, Nas. You tested positive for amphetamines. Do you even realize what that means? Without a prescription, it's illegal. Meaning, you weren't pulling all-nighters to study. You were partying. You know what else? Amphetamines counteract ketamine. Too much of it? Boom. Psychosis. This just makes you look even worse in court. Nas, still recovering from the verbal smackdown, barely had time to process what was happening when, bam, Petey's mom's little package landed in his hands. In the middle of this intense interrogation, Stone started piecing together the timeline. So, you went to a party, stopped at an intersection, kicked 2 people out of the cab. Andrea got in. You bought drinks at a convenience store, went to the lake, parked, met 1 person before heading to Andrea's apartment. That right? Nas shook his head. Not 1 person. 2. Stone's eyes narrowed. 2? But Trevor swore to Box he was alone that night. Who was the second guy? Now that was suspicious. And on top of it all, Stone had another major issue. Nas was now officially involved in smuggling. You do realize that if they catch you with this package, your case is done, right? You'll never get out of here. Nas was already sweating bullets, but the damage was done. Or, more accurately, the package was already inside him. The Waiting Game, Toilet Edition. Back in his cell, the final step of the mission awaited him. Nas had to extract the package. The method? There was only one way. Time to poop it out. To speed up the process, they even gave him a laxative cocktail. Nas stared at the floor, utterly defeated. Not too long ago, his biggest worries were exams and group projects. Now, he was sitting on a prison toilet, waiting for contraband to exit his body. What a plot twist! Freddy wasn't just his protector anymore. He was like a professor in Crime 101. Nas's Crime Career Advancement Program. He started handling Freddy's drug business inside. His assignments were getting riskier by the day. Worse, he actually started using the drugs himself. And the cherry on top? He went and got tattoos on his hands and his back. Yeah, if his mom ever saw that, she'd skin him alive with a flip-flop. One of the defining moments? Freddy handed Nas an ecstasy pill. Without hesitation, Nas bit into it like it was gum. He used to be scared. Now he was numb. He used to just survive. Now he was part of the system. Freddy grinned. You're not a college boy anymore. You're a man now. Nas didn't say a word. But in his eyes, a storm was brewing. Somewhere deep inside, he knew. He had lost himself. Meanwhile, outside prison walls, Chandra was going full detective mode, analyzing the CCTV footage from when Nas stopped at the convenience store. And there it was, a black man approaching Nas's cab while she was inside. Okay, who is this guy? A little digging later, Chandra finally got a name. Day. His profession? Mortician. Yeah, a freaking mortician. Undertaker. The guy literally handled dead bodies for a living. Kinda cool, kinda terrifying, Chandra muttered. With zero hesitation, Chandra tracked him down and confronted him. Why'd you approach Nas's cab? What did you and Andrea talk about? And where did you go after that? Day didn't answer. Instead, he smirked and said, You'll find your answer in Judges 16. Chandra blinked. Judges 16? The hell is that? Day just gave a cryptic smile and walked away. A chill ran down Chandra's spine. The second she got back, she grabbed a Bible and flipped to Judges 16. And then, boom, mind blown. It was the story of Samson and Delilah. Samson, the strongest man alive, who was ultimately betrayed by Delilah. She tricked him into revealing his weakness, leading to his downfall. Chandra sat back, staring at the pages. Was Andrea Delilah in this story? Not literally, but one night with Andrea equals Nas's life completely destroyed. One night with Delilah equals Samson brought to ruin. It was all coming together. This wasn't just a murder case anymore. There was a bigger game being played. Facebook stalking and a hidden past. Meanwhile, Detective Box was busy doing what all detectives and nosy exes do best, Facebook stalking. And something felt off. Why would this kid go to a school 40 minutes away when there's one just 4 blocks from his house? His detective senses tingling, Box started digging into Nas's past, talking to his former teachers. And bingo, turns out, Nas once got into a fight so bad that he threw a kid down a staircase. The poor guy, left with a broken arm. Box wasted no time telling Stone. Stone, who was already sick of Naz's endless surprises, just sighed. "Twice, Naz. Twice you lied to me." Naz finally spoke up. "I didn't want to fight, sir. But after 9/11s, my brother and I got jumped constantly just for being Muslim. Didn't matter where you were from, Arab, Pakistani, North African, people just assumed we were terrorists. I kept my anger in check for years. But then one day, this guy, Steve Diaz, pushed me too far and I snapped. I admit it was messed up, but I'm not some violent thug." Stone went silent. Naz had a point. But damn, this just made things even more complicated. That night, Naz was wandering around the cell block when he glanced into Petey's room, the new inmate who looked like he'd get ID'd for buying juice boxes. And oh no. Freddy's friend was forcing Petey to perform karaoke on his, lower microphone. Naz froze. Jesus Christ. Poor Petey. He did the only thing he could do, pretend he saw nothing. But later, in the showers, the same inmate cornered him. "Keep your mouth shut, kid, or you'll end up worse than Petey." Naz nodded. Prison wasn't just about surviving. It was about knowing which battles to fight and which ones to avoid. Dark times, man. The trial. Pizza or justice? The Andrea case was back in court. This time, a jury would decide Naz's fate. Translation? He wasn't just up against the prosecutor. He had to convince a group of random strangers who might care more about a pizza discount than his future. On one side, there was Helen, the prosecutor, ready to convince the jury that Naz was a cold-blooded criminal. On the other, his defense lawyer was doing mental gymnastics, trying to prove that Naz was just an unlucky college kid, caught in a legal hurricane. Helen's Naz is guilty. PowerPoint presentation. Helen strutted into court like she was about to pitch a $1 million business deal. The sketchy taxi situation. A police officer testified that the cab Naz was driving wasn't just his dad's. It was also registered to two other guys, Yusef Bashir and Tariq Mazari. Worse, Naz didn't have permission to take it that night. Legally speaking, that made him a car thief. Fantastic. The unwanted passengers. Another cop testified that Naz had been pissed when two random guys entered his cab. He was so mad he even called the cops to kick them out. But when Andrea got in, total silence. Helen smirked. Naz wasn't driving that night, he was hunting. The alcohol mystery. Naz bought 2 drinks, a water bottle and a beer. But the only DNA on the beer bottle? Andrea's. Helen slammed her hands on the desk. Naz let her get drunk, so she'd be easier to manipulate. Boom. Trial adjourned. Naz and his defense team absolutely sweating bullets. Meanwhile, Stone smells money. While the courtroom drama unfolded, Stone was busy following his gut feeling. And that gut feeling? Something ain't right. "What if this isn't just about Naz?" he muttered. "What if this whole mess is about money?" Suspect number 1, Don Sugar Baby Taylor. Meet Don, professional gold digger. His specialty? Seducing rich older women, getting them to fall hard, marrying them, and then cashing in when they die. Classic. Stone started digging into Andrea's family situation. Turns out, her house originally belonged to her mother, Evelyn Cornish. And Andrea? Her only heir. Which meant that when Evelyn passed away, the house would legally go to Andrea. But before she could inherit it, Andrea died. Suspicious. Follow the money. Enter Ray Halley. Stone tracked down Ray Halley, a financial consultant who knew way too much about rich people's bank accounts. Ray spilled the tea. If Don's wife died, he'd get half of her wealth. After Evelyn died, Andrea immediately hired Ray, probably because she already suspected Don. Don had a history of wooing wealthy women. One of his exes even filed a restraining order against him. The dude worked as a gym trainer with a mediocre salary, but suddenly quit right after marrying Evelyn. Stone's eyes lit up. Was Andrea's murder part of Don's bigger plan to inherit the family fortune? Stone versus Don. The face-off. Like the absolute madman he was, Stone decided to go straight to Don's hunting ground. A local gym. And sure enough, there he was, chatting up rich older women, flashing that gold digger grin. Stone leaned against the wall, watching from afar. "This guy's a predator of the highest level," he muttered. Was Don really behind all of this? Or was Stone about to get punched in the face? But before we continue into this roller coaster of a story, make sure to like Colorado MMET and subscribe Atre Des Data Center channel so you don't miss out on more mind-blowing film breakdowns. Ready? Let's get into it. Stone versus the ultimate gold digger. Stone had finally had enough. He decided to confront Don directly. So where did he find him? At the gym, of course. And guess what Don was doing? Not working out, that's for sure. Instead, he was sweet-talking rich, older women like he was at a speed dating event. Dude wasn't just a fitness freak, he was a certified sugar baby in training. Stone stood in the corner, shaking his head. This guy never learns, does he? Meanwhile, back in court, Chandra took center stage, ready to grill the forensic doctor brought in by Helen. With his usual cool demeanor, she asked, "Doctor, have you ever misdiagnosed someone before?" The doctor puffed up his chest, clearly offended. "Absolutely not." Chandra smirked. She had a trap set. She casually flipped through some old case files and, bam, brought up a past forensic mistake that wrongfully sent an innocent man to prison for years. The jury exchanged glances. In their heads, they were probably thinking, wait, if that doctor messed up before, could he be wrong again this time? And just like that, Chandra planted a seed of doubt in their minds. Helen cranks up the drama. Halfway through the trial, Helen decided to go full soap opera mode. She pulled out crime scene photos of Andrea's body and flashed them on the screen. Why? To make sure the jury felt the impact. The reaction was immediate, gasps, whispering. A few people even looked away. But the biggest reaction? Naz's mom. She suddenly stood up and walked out of the courtroom. Naz's heart dropped. "Seriously, Mom? Even you don't believe me." Chandra quickly followed her outside and gently said, "Listen, this case isn't just about facts, it's about perception. The jury isn't just watching Naz's testimony. They're watching everything. His body language, his family's reactions. If you leave now, you're sending a message that even you doubt him." So far, Naz's mother nodded silently. But deep down, she knew. This trial was turning into a horror movie. Islamophobia takes over. Outside the courtroom, things were getting ugly. Graffiti filled the streets, slurs against Muslims, hateful messages scrawled across walls. Naz's father, usually just an ordinary taxi driver, now had people treating him like a criminal. It was becoming clear. This case wasn't just about Naz anymore. It was about something bigger. Stone discovers Don's dirty laundry. While the trial heated up, Stone was busy getting some juicy intel from Ray, the financial consultant who used to handle Andrea's accounts. Turns out, Don wasn't just a gym rat looking for rich widows. He was a full-time gold digger with a PhD in brokeology. How broke? Visa? Maxed out. MasterCard? Over the limit. Amex? Bankrupt. Twice. The dude was living like a millionaire on a homeless man's budget. And here's the kicker. One of Don's exes, another rich widow, barely escaped with her life. She almost got strangled by him, went to the police, and even got a restraining order. Stone sat back and thought, this guy's been running the same scam since the Stone Age. Was Andrea just another target? Helen's trump card. The betrayal. Back in court, Helen pulled out a secret weapon. She called Amir, one of Naz's friends, to testify. The moment Amir took the stand, he was sweating buckets. Naz sold, didn't he? Helen asked, her voice sharp. Amir gulped. Well, yeah, but only. Helen pounced. So he sold prescription medication meant for himself? Amir nodded hesitantly. Yeah, but only to friends. It was like $10 a pill. The jury stared at Naz. Helen smiled. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just some innocent college kid. This is an opportunist, profiting off a system meant to help him. Naz sat there, frozen. In his head he thought, come on, I sold a couple of pills, not ran a drug cartel. Even Jeff Bezos started small. But this case was spiraling out of control. At this point, nobody knew if Naz was a victim, or just really good at playing one. Naz's dark side, truth or misconception. And just when things couldn't get worse. The prosecution called Naz's old gym teacher as a witness. Yup, the PE guy. The dude who spent his career forcing kids to run laps was now a key witness in a murder trial. The moment he sat down, he fired shots. Naz has anger issues, Your Honor, he declared. And then he dropped a bombshell. One time, he threw a kid down a staircase. The boy broke his arm. The jury looked shocked. In their heads, they were probably thinking, wait, is this guy a college student or a UFC fighter? Helen saw her chance and pressed forward. And after that incident, did Naz show any remorse? The gym teacher shook his head. Number, he didn't even look at the kid. No reaction, no guilt, nothing. Helen turned to the jury. See, this is a pattern. Violence without remorse. That's who Naz really is. Chandra stepped up, trying to turn the tide. Coach, can you imagine how hard it was for Muslim students after 9/11s? He asked. The coach sighed. Yeah, I can. Chandra thought she had an opening. But then, the coach kept talking. But out of all my Muslim students, Naz was the only one who put 2 kids in the hospital. Chandra froze. Wait, 2? The coach nodded. Yep, the first was the kid he threw down the stairs. The second, a student he smashed in the face with a soda bottle, needed 12 stitches. Chandra was speechless. Even he started wondering, wait, is my client a victim or just low-key unhinged? Naz's family falls apart. Meanwhile, back home, things were going from bad to worse. Naz's father, Salim, was desperate. He started selling everything just to stay afloat. At first, it was small stuff, old electronics, unused furniture. Then, his wife's jewelry. When Naz's mom found out her wedding ring was gone, that was it. She didn't just lose faith in her son. She was losing everything. This wasn't just a rough patch anymore. This was survival mode. And the worst part? The trial wasn't even over yet. Meanwhile, Stone was still on his mission to dig up dirt on Don. He had a gut feeling that Don wasn't just some innocent gym bro. There was something off about this guy. So, naturally, he did what any self-respecting investigator would do. He stalked him. Following Don to the gym seemed like a solid plan. What could go wrong? Well, a lot, apparently. Because mid-stakeout, while Stone was pretending to casually lift weights, definitely overestimating his own strength, Don suddenly appeared right above him, leaning over the barbell, grinning, chilling. With that I know everything, you're doing kind of look. I know you're investigating me, Don said, his voice calm but very much in the I will destroy you zone. Stone froze. The weights that felt heavy before, now they felt like they came with an extra side of existential crisis. Don leaned in closer, voice as cold as the protein shakes he probably guzzled daily. Drop it, he said, or I'll pay your ex-wife a visit. Stone blinked. Dude came here to stay fit and get justice, and somehow ended up getting threatened with his past trauma. Man, I just wanted to solve a murder, he thought, not get PTSD from my divorce all over again. Meanwhile, inside prison, Naz finally built up the courage to call his mom. Ding. No answer. Ding. Still no answer. Ding. Call declined. Naz just sat there, staring at the phone, processing the fact that his own mother had just rejected his call like a spam telemarketer. He swallowed hard, his chest tightening. So this is it, huh? He thought. Even my own mom doesn't want to hear my voice. It hit him then he wasn't just on trial in court. He was on trial in his own family's heart, too. Back in the courtroom, Detective Box took the stand. Chandra ready to pounce. She stepped forward, her voice calm but sharp. So tell me, Detective, why are you so convinced that Naz is the one and only suspect? Box didn't even blink. Because, he said, all the evidence points to him. Chandra nodded, like she was playing along. Okay, let's talk about that. Naz has been to court twice now. The judge even offered him 15 years, which, let's be real, is a pretty sweet deal for a case this serious. But Naz refused. Wouldn't even consider it. He tilted his head. So tell me, Detective, why would someone completely guilty turn that down? Box shrugged, unfazed. I don't need a confession, he said. I need facts and evidence. The jury shifted in their seats. People started whispering. Chandra smirked. Oh? You don't need a confession? Well, what if the evidence you have isn't as airtight as you think? For the first time, Box paused. Final thoughts. Who's really guilty here? This case was turning into a mess. On one hand, Naz has a history of violence. The evidence does point at him, but he still refuses to confess, even when it would mean a lighter sentence. But on the other hand, Don is shady. He has a very obvious motive, money, duh. And now he's out here threatening people who are trying to investigate him. So, who's telling the truth? Who's the real villain? And, more importantly, who's about to lose their mind trying to figure this all out? Courtroom drama. The forensic grandpa steps up. After Helen's witnesses put on their little show, it was finally time for Naz's side to bring out their secret weapon. Enter a forensic expert. But not just any forensic expert. This was Grandpa CSI, the kind of grandpa who didn't just hand out candy, but could also look at a single bloodstain and instantly tell you who sneezed near it 3 weeks ago. The courtroom fell silent as the old man walked up to the stand. He adjusted his glasses, glanced at the crime scene photos, and pointed at some objects on the table. A bottle opener, a nutcracker, a bunch of cocktail napkins, a drink stirrer, 2 knives. And just like that, Chandra was on the move. She pulled out the alleged weapon, a knife, and held it up dramatically. Sir, does this knife look similar to the ones found at the crime scene? Grandpa CSI barely glanced at it before replying, Similar? Nah. This thing is identical. The jury started whispering. A buzz filled the room. Boom. Solid evidence. But wait, there was a catch. One knife is missing. Grandpa CSI added. Cue dramatic gasps. The room tensed. People sat up in their seats. I've examined the set, the old man continued. This particular knife model is only sold in complete sets. No individual pieces. If one knife is missing, it means, well, it's just gone. Nowhere to be found. The jury exchanged worried looks. Where the heck did that missing knife go? Andrea and her questionable hobbies. Wasting no time, Chandra pulled out another piece of evidence. A close-up photo of Andrea's hands. Her fingers covered in scars and small cuts. Sir, can you explain these injuries? Chandra asked. Grandpa CSI squinted at the photo, then let out a deep sigh. Well, based on the pattern, this looks like an injury from an extreme game. The jury started looking at each other, puzzled. Chandra raised an eyebrow. What kind of game are we talking about here? Grandpa CSI leaned forward. You ever heard of that stab? Between your fingers really fast with a knife game? The jury collectively winced. "Yeah, that one," the old man continued. "If you mess up, the knife stabs your own hand. And judging by these scars, Andrea didn't just try it once. She practiced." Suddenly, the entire narrative shifted. So Andrea was the kind of person who enjoyed flirting with danger? Grandpa CSI kept going, flipping to another piece of evidence. A blueprint of Andrea's house. "See this door on the first floor? It's been slightly open for years." Chandra frowned. "How can you be sure?" The old man smirked. "Rust around the keyhole. That lock hasn't been used in a long time." Chandra turned to the jury, raising her voice for dramatic effect. "Ladies and gentlemen, this proves one thing. Anyone could have walked into Andrea's house." The jury looked deep in thought. If the door was always open, maybe someone else really did sneak in that night? Helen tries to regain control. But Helen wasn't about to let Chandra steal the spotlight. She stepped forward, ready to flip the script. "Sir," she said sweetly, "do you know when Andrea bought this knife set?" Grandpa CSI shrugged. "Not exactly. But I do know that this particular model hasn't been manufactured since 2008. Helen grinned. "Oh, really?" she said. "Well, let me tell you something. A few years ago, I bought my husband a fancy power drill set for his birthday. Tell me, sir, how many drill bits do you think we still have left?" The jury looked confused. Chandra looked confused. Even Grandpa CSI raised an eyebrow. Helen didn't wait for an answer. "Exactly," she continued. "Things go missing. They break. They get thrown away. So what's more likely, that someone stole a knife from, or that Andrea just lost it like a normal person?" The jury nodded along. That actually made sense. But Helen wasn't done. She pointed at Andrea's injury photos again. "All right, sir, let's say Andrea did play this ridiculous knife game and accidentally stabbed her hand. Shouldn't she have rushed to the ER? That much blood, it's gotta be serious." Grandpa CSI nodded. "You're right. Normally, that would be the case." Helen smirked. "Then explain this. Right after cutting herself, Andrea didn't go to the hospital. Instead, she decided to, well, have a good time with someone." The jury's heads snapped up. "Wait, she got stabbed and then immediately jumped into bed with someone?" Helen folded her arms, looking triumphant. "Now, tell me, sir, does that sound logical?" The jury murmured in agreement. "Yeah, that's pretty weird behavior." But Grandpa CSI just chuckled. "Logical? Oh no, absolutely not," he said. "But let me remind you, Andrea and her partner were both drunk and high that night." He shrugged. They weren't exactly thinking straight. Boom. The whole courtroom practically exploded. Helen's smug expression vanished. Her argument just fell apart. Frustrated, she plopped back into her seat, arms crossed. Final thoughts. More questions, less answers. So, what did we learn today? One knife is missing? Weapon? Or just lost? Who knows? Turns out, Andrea never locked her doors. She also had a thing for dangerous games. Seriously, what's up with that? But Helen made a good point. Just because a knife is missing doesn't mean it was used for murder. This case was getting messier by the second. More confusing. More absurd. And the jury? Absolutely lost. So who really did it? Who's lying? And most importantly, was there someone else in Andrea's house that night? Well, folks, we'll have to find out in the next trial.